Welcome back, guys. Slybacon here, and welcome to another Total Warhammer battle replay. We're going to have something a wee bit different for you today. I've got actually two matches to show you, and I really just wanted to show off the army, which I think is the best greenskin army you can currently field in the current patch and stuff. You guys have seen this army before. It's the same army that I used against Viking Cat, and obviously we managed to pull a win out on that one. That was early on in the inception of the build. That was probably like 4 or 5 matches into it, but I've been playing it a bit more since then, and yeah, I really do think it's the best army you can currently field with the Greenskins, basically when you don't know what you're playing against, right? Which is basically all quick battles. You don't know what you're going to come up against. But I just want to go through like the strengths of this build, and then we'll go through maybe some of the weaknesses, although to be honest I haven't found that many as of yet. So we'll go through the army. Like I said, a lot of you guys have already seen this, but we'll go through it. So we've got a front line of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Savage Orc Biggins. They are up to rank 2, just to spend the last of our money. They being the Savage Orc Biggins, pretty much are the best infantry unit the Greenskins can currently field. And also they counter pretty much anything that the opponent could field as well. They don't have armor piercing, of course, but they do have a lot of damage. And they are anti-large as well. So if your lines are exposed to like cavalry or stuff like that, they will just absolutely chew through them. With them, we've got the 8-peat loonies, just because they're unbreakable, and it gives us an opportunity to use the fanatic ability and hopefully pick up some good kills with that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But again, at the end of the day, they are unbreakable. They do still have that poison damage as well, which of course reduces the damage that's going to be incoming onto the Savage Orcs. Savage Orc Biggins are also obviously so good because of that 30% damage reduction that they currently have in this current iteration. Used to be 20%, got buffed to 30. 30 is probably too much, right? 25 is probably the sweet spot. So we're probably going to see that reduced in the next patch. Sorry, but for now, it's 30%, so we'll use it, right? For our artillery piece, we bring a Hammer of Gork. The reason we bring the Hammer of Gork is because of the debuff that it has, which is the minus 40% accuracy debuff. This one here, so minus 40% accuracy, obviously on range units, and also there's the melee defense and melee attack debuffs, but we're not really using it for that purpose. We bring it to counteract any artillery that the enemy might bring. Now, obviously, the other good thing about this is it is armor piercing. This army lacks a wee bit of armor piercing, but it doesn't seem to matter too much. But it does have armor piercing damage, and obviously coming at 211 damage, which is pretty high for an artillery piece. So, like countering at cannons and stuff like that, as soon as you hit them with the Hammer of Gork, it just nullifies any enemy artillery that they may field. So again, this is the best all-round build, right, when you don't know what you're going to be playing up against. For our cavalry contingent, we bring 2 units of Orc Boy Biggins. Kind of contemplating whether we want to bring the Savage Orc Biggins or not, because of course they do have that 30% damage reduction buff as well. But they are a wee bit more expensive, so we're going to stick with the Orc Boy Biggins for now. We've got the Night Goblin War Boss on his lovely squiggy mount. We've got 2 Goblin Big Bosses again to give us that poison damage. You might notice a theme developing here. We've got the Night Goblin Shaman, of course, to reduce the amount of magic regen that the enemy is going to have, and of course we've got Itchy Nuisance on that guy as well. We do of course change this up a wee bit if we're going against like Wood Elves, etc., like Kaiti armies. We put in Gork will fix it for that lovely slow and things like that. But I think kind of the base to this army, if you will, is this Skirmish Squad, which a lot of Greenskin players don't tend to use. The higher ranked Greenskin players tend to use it, but like the general everyday player doesn't really tend to use it so much. And I've got a slight variation of what most people normally bring. So they normally bring Morgul's Mangy Marauders, because of course they've got that lovely armor piercing damage, and then they usually just bring 3 Wolf Rider archers because they're cheap. They're like 300 gold. But I like to bring 2 units of Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers. Now the reason for that is of course they've got the poison debuff, so that slows down enemy cavalry that'll be trying to chase this. And it also puts a debuff, of course, which reduces damage and stuff like that on top of them. I don't know if the Regiment of Renown one is worth it. We could drop that down to just a standard version and then upgrade these to the Savage Orc Biggins. That would be another play we could do on it. But for now, I just find this really works. Now, the reason we've got 2 is so we can split these. So we can have these 2 attacking one target and these 2 attacking another target. And then they're both going to be slowed down by the 2 different units of poison attack going on there. All right, so that's the army. Let's get into it. I won't go through the enemy's armies today, just because that's not really the point of this video. But this guy obviously came in with a Pistolier of Outriders. He does have a unit of Pistoliers, I believe, as well. Outriders with grenades over there. So I've got my Hammer of Gork firing in here. yeah, you want to target at either enemy artillery if they have it, or you want to target on the range units, because of that debuff. That, like, this unit here now has that minus 40% accuracy debuff on it, so which is very good. We are going to actually retarget it on this cannon to get it out. But as you can see here, we're just trying to poke away at any units. What we're really trying to do is actually bait out the cavalry. We want the cavalry to come out here and charge this, and in the meantime, we're also moving our cavalry forward up into here. So kind of like a bait and switch type of play. And I do this every single time. You'll see it in the next video as well, where I do exactly the same thing, well, the next replay, sorry, where I do exactly the same thing. And I do that every single time. We also move the Goblin Shaman forward. We deploy him on this flank just slightly forward. We're going to bring him forward because we want to get an itchy nuisance down there as well. Right, so we have actually baited out the right scout. I think he actually gets a good charge on me on this one. So we're going to try and stick those poison arrows on there. As you can see, his speed's now dropped to 51, which allows us to run away rather quickly, but he did actually get his charge bonus, well, charge speed bonus I should say, and on there, which actually allowed him to grab on top. But we're still poisoning him, so reducing the damage he's able to do to us, and obviously the speed, with this extra speed of my guys, I can just kind of run away from that. And now we're pulling in our cavalry to kill off his cavalry. The only thing with this squad you need to be careful of is, of course, their ranged foot units, because they will beat the ranged cavalry units, of course. Any day of the week they will do it. So you just got to be really careful. You don't get hit by that. You would have seen that he did actually get a shot off quite early on into these, but he didn't manage to kill anything, which is fantastic. This is all the damage that was done by these pistoliers and this charge by the Reichsguard. As you can see, we've absolutely destroyed this unit of Reichsguard. They did have that poison debuff on them for most of the fight, well, for most of this little engagement we had. Yeah, managed to absolutely kill them. He did back them up with a unit of spears. We're just pretty much going to ignore that. As you can see, my Hammer of Gork is absolutely destroying this cannon. We're at the point now where it's kind of useless for us to fire into. I do believe I retarget in on this unit of Greatswords as well. But we have taken out a unit of Reichsguard and pretty much a unit of Outriders. We're going to run over the top of these spears and just continue on pushing through. We don't want to fight against the spears, obviously. They're kind of irrelevant. Unit of spears. Yeah, we pushed on, got on top of another unit of his guns, which obviously is going to reduce a lot of the damage he can do against us, armor piercing damage. And as you can see here, like, he's bringing, now that's Pistoliers. Where does his other unit of Reichsguard? He brings his other unit of Reichsguard forward. Right, we'll have a look at that in a minute when that happens. Just leaving my archers to deal with this unit of spearmen. Obviously we don't want to engage them with our cavalry if we can. This dude got kind of stuck, but we do manage to actually pull him out. This unit of gunners is broken. We're just going to swoop in here and finish off the rest of that artillery piece, the rest of that cannon piece. And yeah, firing into the great swords as well. Already doing a decent amount of damage. Rock Lob is up to 58 kills already, which is pretty good considering we're firing at a cannon for a large majority of it. There we go. So more damage in. Again, with that armor piercing damage, just absolutely rips through these. Right, so he's kind of like, oh my god, I'm losing. So he's just going to rush in with his lord, Karl Franz, who's on a mount. But unfortunately for him, these are all anti-large, remember? So that's not going to go too well for him. Now, I did start to move this line forward because I did want to get the charge bonus, but then I kind of figured, well, he's actually charging me, so let's just brace. So we'll carry on. Let's just brace, just eat the charge, and then we'll start attacking him. Doing quite a bit of damage with his Outriders here into this unit of Savage Orc Biggins, but not a tremendous amount of work. Right, so this unit of Reichsguard is now surrounded by, well, 1.5 units, I guess, of Savage Orc Biggins. And of course, because we've managed to smash on his left flank, we can just pull our cavalry units in and just get on top of the rest of his range stuff. Just absolutely mow it down with the rest of our cavalry. Now the good thing about these here as well, although they are a skirmisher squad, you can still chuck them in, as we're doing right here. You can still chuck them into melee just to like stop fire from coming in. And of course, with 3 or 4 units charging in, the morale damage is going to be massive. Right, so we crashed into this line, killed that off. Now we're just going to pull through, kill off the rest of his handgunners, and then eventually we're going to pull in and deal with his Reichsguard. As you can see, the Reichsguard was in at full health, now down to half health. Of course, the Savage Orc Biggins going to do very, very good damage against that. Karl Franz kind of got stuck in there against the 2 units of Savage Orc Biggins as well. Massive amount of damage on that one as well. So that one went pretty well. I think, can we actually see the end screen? Yes, we can. I'll show you the end screen before we jump into the next one. So as you can see, our Skirmish Squad picked up quite a bit of damage, or quite a few kills. So 48, 10, 31, 12 respectively. Artillery piece got up to 85, which is very, very good. KF 57, 45 respectively on there. For him, his Pistoliers or his Outriders with the grenades did quite a bit of damage once they actually engaged with the Savage Orc line. For 36 kills, pretty good. This unit of Reichsguard was again the one that crashed into our line. Yeah, 23 kills on that one. Demigryph Knights got a few kills, but nothing dramatic. Karl Franz 19, yeah, so not a massive amount of kills for our opponent there. Right, let's jump into the next one. What was that one? Yep, Greenskins versus Beastmen. Yep, there we go. So this is a match where it didn't go completely to plan, but it still kind of worked, right? So I wanted to show you one where we won quite comfortably, and this one here where it got a wee bit dicey, but we were still managed to pull it out in the end. So yes, I know, spoiler alerts, right? So yeah, spoiler alerts, right? So we've got exactly the same army for me. The opponent actually brought a pretty decent Beastman army, something I don't really see a lot of. Which is the 2 Minotaurs, one with great weapons and one with shields, and he's got these 2 archers in here as well. Again, so we're just trying to pick off as much as we can. Obviously, ideally we want to target into this, but we have to be really careful with these hounds, right, because they are faster than us. But once we get some poison arrows into them, they of course will slow down completely. There is of course that charge bonus that comes into effect. Sorry, the charge speed bonus which comes into effect, which you do need to be careful of. But as you can see, we've got the poison damage on them. Their speed's dropped down to 73. They're not going to catch us now. So we're just going to pump in some damage. And again, just pulling my cavalry force forward. Trying to do as much damage as we can. Trying to bait them forward again, just so we can bait them into our actual cavalry. And we've also moved forward with our cavalry, trying to just, you know, counteract stuff up in here. Just doing as much damage as we can with these boys. Again, ideally we want to be like targeting beastigores, stuff like that in this type of matchup, because obviously they're pretty highly armoured and we don't have a lot of armour piercing within our army. This guy actually deployed really far back, so my artillery hadn't had a chance to actually fire until I think about now. Yeah, I think about now is when we actually start to get some shots off there, which is very good. Nice debuff or whatever it was on those, but it didn't do a hell of a lot of damage. Again, we've got to just be careful with these archers. All I was doing here was just like charging in, making him move those archers, then we're just going to pull straight back out again. Again, these poison warhounds are going to try and catch us. They will actually catch these because they're not that fast, only 62 as a base. Well, those warhounds could have caught us if he wanted to commit to that. Even with the poison on them, they do drop down to 73, and of course he's pulling over his tentacles as well. Again, we want to focus in on them. We will split these up at some stage. Focus like one there, one there. But as you can see, he's pulling over his minotaurs as well. And like I said, this match doesn't go completely to plan, but it still went alright. As you can see, my cavalry force, my infantry force has not moved. We just want to try and get as much damage out of that artillery and stuff as we can. So here we go. As warhounds have actually caught enough. I didn't retarget in time onto the second unit. This one's obviously being slowed down, but this one's not. We are going to pull over our orc boys and try and just kill these off as fast as we can. He's brought his minotaurs over, which was actually very good play by him. There's anti-large, of course, and these guys are not. No, those are just the armor-piercing ones. They're going to do a lot of damage anyway. The centaurs, of course, do a lot of damage. Managed to break off these 2 warhounds pretty easily. Let's say bait them in with your skirmish stuff, and then pull them back. Obviously baiting, and then just swing around with your cavalry. Pretty much what I like to do in every single matchup. Seems to work. Focus firing a wee bit on the Bray Shaman, just because these 4 can actually dumpster a single target pretty quickly. But with his minotaurs coming across, and his beastigores, and his chariot, and his other unit of minotaurs coming across as well, got to be a wee bit careful. Which I was not, let's be honest. I was not that careful. We've got poison debuff on the centaurs. We've got poison debuff on the minotaurs with great weapons as well. I wasn't too worried about the chariot at this stage. I believe I start to move my infantry line forward shortly, just because this engagement's not really going in my favour. But all of his stuff is committed on this side, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 units of infantry and a couple of archers on this side, and his lord's also kind of out in the middle as well. So we'll just watch this fight for a wee bit. Orc Boy Biggins, of course, do a pretty decent amount of damage. Those beastigores going down pretty hard. We're just really focusing on those minotaurs though, and unfortunately for me, his dogs actually came back in. I wasn't able to retarget on them because I was focusing on these minotaurs with shields, trying to get them down. As you can see, we do start to pump out quite a bit of damage. This engagement kind of cost me my 2 units of Orc Boy Biggins. So again, I didn't play it particularly well, and I think, yeah, as soon as I realised they were going to go down, I was going to push forward with my infantry line. The thing that I've got going on here, again, is all this stuff basically that's on this side of the field for him is large, and of course our infantry line is anti-large, so that's not going to work out too much in his favour, and he doesn't have a lot of infantry left. As you can see, my Hammer of Gork's doing decent damage to these beastigores, almost down to half health on that one. A wee bit of damage on them, which they sustained at the start. There we go, down to half health on those beastigores with that chariot. Right, so we've still got our ranged squad going, doing at least a decent amount of damage to these minotaurs. I shouldn't say decent because they're down to half already. We're not going to get the massive kill numbers that we got in the last matchup, but just because these are like large single target or large low model count armies, or units I should say. As you can see, yeah, just doing a lot of damage. Just the armor piercing from the mangy marauders, plus obviously the poison for the debuff. It's massive, right? Look at their speed, down to 43. You're going to start retargeting on this one here. Yeah, like I said, I did kind of waste my cavalry in this engagement. Well, I didn't waste it. He played well, managed to actually capture them, and we're just, you know, killing off models and stuff on these, which is fantastic. He knows that he's got to get these back over into the main fight because this line's not going to hold. He did leave his Beast Lord kind of out in the open, so I just rushed forward with my Lord Killing Squad. Not a great idea because the Beastie Gores will do a lot of damage to them, but we did manage to catch them just in time, but that's going to get these guys surrounded, unfortunately. Again, we're just peppering away at these Minotaurs with great weapons, pulling off a couple of units of my Savage Orc Biggins to try and get into those. This one's going to come into that one, I believe. I think this one tries to get in there as well, but I retarget it back that way. Oh yeah, because he's charging that one. We're going to charge into here. These are going to just drop real fast now, right? Because they're running straight into large, anti-large units, which is very, very awesome. Cavalry, not cavalry, chariot coming in, which, as you guys know, I hate playing against chariots, but with the amount of anti-large we've got actually in here, it works out quite nicely in our favour. This unit of Minotaurs just got absolutely dumpstered because it came in at about half health. This is all but gone, these Centaurs. The Minotaurs are all but gone as well. Brave Shaman's still hanging around there. Chariot's going to rush in on the back here. We'll retarget some of these big ones into there. We did quite a bit of damage, as you can see here, to this Goblin Big Boss. I probably should have focused on my Lord, but whatever. There's one Big Boss that just went down. This one's going to go down as well. But my Night Goblin Big Boss, as you can see there, I tried to get that lovely thematic spinny crap going, but it didn't really work out. Got 2 kills. It didn't really work out at all. Right, so I'm just going to bring them in from the back because they were targeting on this unit. But, that's the point when his infantry line's getting all but wrecked. Right, most of his large units are gone. The Minotaurs are gone. Just pulling in with the rest of my cav. I'm going to start focusing in my skirmishes on his chariot. Of course, the chariot's also surrounded by anti-large, which they're going to do a lot of damage. Beast Lord's taking a massive amount of damage there, and I do eventually tell my catapult to stop firing because it was actually firing into my own lines, not necessarily his. Yeah, just eating away at these. Look at his Lord. He absolutely dumps him. Mine's going down as well, but we do pop the potion on there to keep him healthy. Lord broke. And I've just got too much left on the field, right? Just way too much left on the field. So yeah, this was an instance where the build didn't work as perfectly as what I would have liked, but we still managed to pull it out. Just because we did a lot of damage to his large units, a lot of damage to those Minotaurs, which of course, that's where a lot of the cost of his army was, stuck up in those Minotaurs. Centaurs, alright, they're quite a bit of cost as well. Like this Skirmish Squad of mine, I believe it's like 2k worth. So, to be able to pretty much kill off 2 Minotaur units with that, a couple of units of dogs, well worth the cost on those, I think, well worth the cost. So you can see they didn't get a hell of a lot of kills, but again, they were firing into these low model count units, and of course the chariot as well, and a few of the doggies, and a few of the Centaurs as well. Yeah, so there we go. 41 kills on the Hammer of Gork, which is alright, not too bad. Yeah, so I just really want to show you a couple of matchups with this build that I just played earlier on today. I do think that this is one of, if not the strongest Greenskin army you can field currently as far as quick battles go. You do need to make some slight changes to it if you're going up against like Wood Elves and stuff like that, but it is like a generic build that kind of you can use to counter pretty much anything. I do think this is a very good build to go with. Again, probably just the Wood Elves is the only one you don't particularly want to bring it against. And again, that's only if they're bringing a Skirmisher Wood Elf army, because obviously these guys won't go too well against Skirmishers, and obviously without having shields on these boys, they'll get absolutely wrecked. But apart from that, I believe this is one of the go-to builds for the Greenskins at the moment, at least in my opinion. Alright guys, so let's just go through the actual build, and I'll give you some suggestions on maybe things you could change to suit your playstyle a bit more, or things that you think, that doesn't work, I wanted something slightly different. So let's just go through what you could change. What you could change. Right, so this is our standard Lord, of course. This one we could knock off if we wanted to, which does save us quite a wee bit of money. You could stick that in extra ranks if that's the way you want to do it. You might even get an extra unit out of it if you're lucky. Oh, just about. But I just like this to try and reduce the damage that the Cavalry Squad, etc. is going to take from missile fire. Because it's only going to be these three really that are getting any... just these three here that are really getting any benefit out of it, right? So that is definitely one you can knock off. That's a contentious one. Obviously, if you're going up against Chaos, stuff like that, you don't want to bring it at all because they don't really have a lot of missiles that you need to worry about. You could also reinvest that money into a better Lord. I just like this dude because he's so cheap, and he seems to do very well. And of course, he's anti-infantry. He's a good fighter as well. Armor piercing. He's a good Lord. He's a good Lord. So just keep him in there. I only bring the Potion of Toughness. I know a lot of people like the Potion of Foolhardiness, so you could just swap that for Spite of the Badman if you wanted to go that way. I just don't use it because I don't think it's worthwhile. For our Goblin Shaman, we just bring that Sneaky Stealing just to give us that reduction in Winds of Magic for the enemy. And I only bring Itchy Nuisance. I know a lot of people like Sneaky Stabbing as well, but I don't think it's worth it anymore since it's been changed to a single target damage buff. When it was the AoE buff, I think it was really, really worth it, but not anymore. I just don't think it's worth the cost. And not necessarily the gold cost, but the cost of Winds of Magic. And on top of that, we've got Gorkle Fix It. You can bring that if you want to slow down some enemies, even if you want to slow them down more, even though we're doing a lot of poison damage with this army, you can bring that, especially if you're going up against like Wood Elf Kiting armies. That is something you could bring in there as well. The 2 Golden Big Bosses, they don't bring any items or any buffs or anything like that. They just them on spiders. I know a lot of people like to bring one on spider, one on wolf. That's another play you could make. I just like to bring them both on spiders, and I don't have to worry about which ones are which, right? The Unbreakable, you don't necessarily have to bring it. It's another unit you can kind of get rid of. But as you can see, we've already saved ourselves, excuse me, 586 bucks at the moment. So you could bring the Warlord's Boys for that lovely Sunder Armor effect. That is something that would be very handy. Or you could get rid of that, and we could bring in those 2 units of Savage Orc Boy Biggins, which we did talk about earlier. So yeah, they do have that 30% damage reduction. Slightly more damage than the Orc Boy Biggins. Actually, what's their anti-large? Because they are bigger and harder. Yeah, it doesn't actually say. Yeah, so they do have an anti-large buff, but it doesn't actually say how much it is, because they are bigger and harder. That one's bonus 12, yeah. I just like these more. I mean, we might play around a wee bit with the Savage Orc Boy Biggins. That's something we could do. And of course, we talked about earlier, the Spider Riders, whether this one here is worth it. It does have that extra 4 damage over this one, which I find really handy. The leadership and the melee stats are kind of irrelevant, because we don't particularly want to chuck them on melee, but you could get rid of him. Chuck in another one of these if that's what you want to do. If you're quite comfortable and you just want to leave your squad together and not like focus fire on different targets, you could obviously get rid of that and just have the 1 spider in there, which again is going to save you quite a bit of money. That actually opens up the door for another unit. A Savage Orc Biggins, if you want to do that way, you almost got enough for another unit of cavalry. If you want to do that, you could knock one of these boys down onto the wolf mount, chuck him in. Now you've got 3 cav, makes you a very, very strong cavalry force, of course. If you want to do that. I know a lot of people don't like to bring artillery, but I just think this artillery piece is so handy, especially with this type of build, because we spend so much of it. The initial stage is just skirmishing. We don't really engage with our infantry line until quite a bit into the battle. So I think we get real good value out of this. Plus, it forces them to come to us, and we can kind of dictate where exactly we want the battle to take place most of the time. That's going to happen. But if you don't want that, knock that off. Grab yourself another Savage Orc Biggin, maybe. You want to do that, or you grab one of these boys, give you that lovely Sunder Armor if you want it, but I'll probably just take another Savage Orc Biggin. There we go. So now I've got heaps of Savage Orc Biggins. This is another build you could go with. Again, if you wanted a stronger Lord, you could knock that off, get rid of him. You could take Orc War Boss on his boar, take his speed off. You don't particularly need that. Give him his potion. If you want a slightly stronger Lord, that's the way to do it. I mean, I don't like it, but it can work. I don't think we particularly need it. Where are we? Skirmish. There we go. Yeah, so I mean, that's a couple of changes you guys can make. I mean, down ranking these gives you a wee bit of extra coin anyway. And knock this off. And then you could bring this to give yourself that lovely Sunder Armor effect. Again, if you wanted it. Or if you could bring another unit of Skirmisher Cav if you want to do it that way as well. Dogs, wolves, whatever. Got a wee bit of money to play with this build, which I think is quite nice. But I think as a base, what we're bringing, which is not that. Excuse me, which is this. I think it works pretty well. I think it works very well, actually, to be honest. Let's just toot my own horn for a minute. I think it's a fantastic build. I think it's the best build you can bring currently. And, in the base of it doesn't really change too much. You can just, pull a couple of things in or push a couple of things out, just to make it suit your playstyle. But I think as a base for an army for quick battles, I think this is the way to go. Alright, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you've learned something. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.